The hidden gaps in history we still don't understand. Let's see. What do we not understand about history? I've been getting into history a lot lately, but yeah. Okay, load. Because we have all the time in the world.
The world's before writing. Most people imagine human history as
Big
a
Bang.
continuous
Okay,
time.
real quick. Do you guys feel like the Big Bang is a thing? What do you guys think? I know some people have different spiritual beliefs. Some people think science. Some people think religion. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments.
But the majority of human existence happened without writing. For tens of thousands of years, humans lived in complex societies, migrated across continents, created
It's a big world we're living in.
buried their dead with rituals, and developed symbolic art,
That's
all
Camus.
without leaving written explanations of what they were doing or why. What remains from this vast period are fragments. Cave paintings in places like Europe, carved figurines, ancient settlements, and burial sites provide clues, but they do not tell full stories. There are no names, no recorded events, no explanations.
Do you know how insane it is that we live in a time where everything is like, we have access to documentation, we document things like currently, and we have previously, like, there are whole bloodlines, people that we we don't know about. We don't know about all them first humans. Did they even give each other names? Or they just communicate in other ways? Like, do you get me? Like, I wonder how they went about that. Because people are gonna say, oh, well, we have this, so we probably communicated like this. But what about the stuff that was undocumented? I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff where it's like, if we figured it out, it might even change the way we live today in some ways. Like, I'm not gonna lie, humanity is cool.
Of beliefs beyond what can be
crazy but cool.
Everything has to be reconstructed from material evidence that survives by chance. This creates a major gap in understanding. Archaeologists can identify patterns like the development of agriculture or the spread of tools, but they cannot fully describe the societies behind them. Entire ways of life may have existed that are invisible today because...
That's insane. Add. YouTube, matter of fact, let me actually pause this ad because, listen, I need to quickly switch over my thing. I'm speaking directly to YouTube right now. Really? Everyday ad. You just want us, at this point, you just want us to become ads. At this point, we're going to turn into ads. All because we have to get YouTube Premium. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. Because this is the thing. If we all get YouTube Premium, it's going to upgrade to something else. That's going to be like YouTube Premium. Do you get me? It's ridiculous. It's annoying. We're going to switch through it anyways. We're not going to be too much of a complainer or complainers. Let me lock in. Oh, this is a bit of a video. We're going to be here for a minute. We're only a minute in.
Left no durable trace. The transition into written history feels sudden in comparison, even though it took place over thousands of years. One moment, humanity is interpreted through objects alone, and the next, civilizations begin recording laws, kings, wars, and daily life. The gap between these two worlds is where
most point someone started writing all this stuff.
Sits, completely undocumented.
What is the oldest known form of documentation? And I'm not talking about like carvings. Like, you know that sometimes it's like symbols. I'm gonna say symbolism. Symbols like I know they had it in like in Egypt. Like, you know what I'm talking about, like carvings. I'm talking about like actual physical writing.
And partially lost. Number 9.
Actually, no, does that not count as writing? The hieroglyphics. Listen, yeah, not too much on me. I'm figuring it out as I go along.
Through fragments and foreign records. Some ancient civilizations appear in history only because other cultures mention them. These references are often brief, indirect, and written from an outsider's perspective. As a result, entire societies are known without fully understanding who they were or how they lived. Ancient Egyptian and Mesopotamian records, for example, mention distant lands, trade partners, and rival groups. In many cases, these names do not match clearly with any known archaeological site today. Some may refer to real civilizations that have not yet been identified, while others may be misunderstood. And
also, you have to consider their perspectives. What if they consider something as a faraway land as literally something like across a river? Did you get me? They might not have... I'm not saying they're dumb. I'm just saying that they might have a different take on perception. what is detrimental to us in the way we perceive it might not be like that for them. They literally might think that this land is like, you got land, a river, and on the other side of the river, they see land and say that that's a distant land. Do you get where I'm coming from? We need to take into account their terminology and how they view things.
Translations of local names. This creates a situation where a civilization can exist in text but remain uncertain in reality. Archaeologists sometimes find ruins that match descriptions loosely but not enough to confirm identity beyond doubt. The result is a historical overlap where text and archaeology do not fully align. Even more complicated are civilizations that leave behind ruins without written records at all. These cultures exist physically but remain unnamed. When combined with written references from outsiders, the picture becomes fragmented, like trying to complete a puzzle with...
I literally said that, like trying to complete a puzzle. It's like he's trying to figure it out.
The issue is that history often depends on who was able to write, not necessarily who existed.
I didn't even think about that. It's only some people, them times, that could write. So they have I guess like a bigger advantage and bias in terms of documenting, because you might have someone, right, that was serious in their times, like for example a warrior or something that was like, he was out in the field, but maybe he just can't write, so therefore he can't say this happened, and then you might have someone who was like on the sidelines being like, I saw it like this, but the warrior could describe it like, no, but it was like this though. You know what I'm coming from? Do you get where I'm coming from, guys? Like, that's a real thing.
These may have played important roles in ancient trade, conflict, or cultural exchange, yet remain partially invisible because their own records did not survive or were never created in written form. Number 8. The dark intervals between the rise and fall of empires. History is often told through the rise and fall of major empires, but what happens between those moments is far less clear. When an empire collapses, administrative systems break down, cities are abandoned or reorganized, and written records often stop being produced. This creates long transitional periods where information becomes extremely limited. These intervals are sometimes called dark ages, but that term does not mean nothing happened. It means there is very little surviving documentation. Populations still
I don't blame them though, because imagine going through all sorts and you have a situation where like your life and your world have been turned upside down because of chaos. Who's really thinking about, yeah, let me go journal this down? Unless that's your mode of expression. But I can imagine even those that would choose to express themselves that way are just trying to focus on rebuilding. Do you get where I'm from? So
adapted, migrated, and rebuilt societies, but the details are missing or scattered across archaeology and later historical reconstruction.
I'm gonna stop pausing the video, right? So much. I know I'm pausing it loads, but I will say shout out to the archaeologists. Do you know how much stuff we know because of it? Now, I do believe that I'm sure they have their measures. I don't know how they go about it, but stuff should be handled respectfully and in a way that is ideal and benefits all people, cultures, etc., etc., etc. But people that go about it in the right way, which is the way that considers everyone, it's very interesting that we know now as a result of this, all this like finding stuff, you know?
Evidence suggests continuity rather than collapse. Cities may shrink instead of disappearing, trade networks may weaken but not fully break, and cultural practices may continue in altered forms. However, without written records, these changes are difficult to track with precision. What makes these gaps important is that they often contain the real transformation of civilizations. The shift from one political system to another rarely...
People are like,
one of the really cool things that we found and use a lot
of we're going through these ads together.
Multiple agents run on a single prompt, where before...
Thank God I was
really happens instantly. It unfolds across generations in ways that are not fully captured in surviving sources. Historians often rely on indirect clues such as pottery styles, burial methods, and settlement patterns to reconstruct these periods. Even then, many questions remain unanswered. The result is a version of history shaped by visible peaks, while the transitions between them remain partially hidden. Number 7. Lost libraries. Entire worlds of knowledge that disappear.
Oh my gosh, this must be... Okay, listen. That must be one of the worst thing. I said must be. It is one of the worst things. Can you imagine? Oh, there's nothing worse where art or literature or something that is could be so meaningful, impactful, that's just ruined or torn away. You know what it reminds me of? You know when have you ever heard of a songwriter? I can't remember who, but flipping, where singers will say that they've lost like their hard drive or something, like, and all this, like, their music is gone. Like imagine that in, like, we're describing right now, book form. All that goodness just gone. Just gone. You might have asked certain questions in them books. You might have new genres in them. We're talking about ancient history, by the way. And so you might have new genres, new forms of talking, like terminology, vocab, language. It's mental. It's crazy.
In centers
really
of
crazy.
knowledge, preserving texts on science, philosophy, medicine, literature, and history. However, many of these collections were destroyed long before modern preservation methods existed. Wars, fires, political changes.
Like, I'm literally writing a story at the moment. I cannot imagine. Let me not even jinx it. But if anything like this happened to it, I just, man. There's no auto-save in the ancient times.
Natural disasters erased entire archives in a matter of hours or days. The most difficult part is not just the loss itself, but the uncertainty of what was inside. Ancient libraries were rarely cataloged in ways that survive today, so historians often do not know.
I wonder how those people felt when they found out,
destroyed. In many cases, only references in other surviving texts hint at what once existed. Some ancient writers mention books and scrolls that no longer survive, suggesting that detailed historical records, scientific theories, or literary works.
Scientific theories? I didn't even think about that.
Without copies, these works exist only as names or brief descriptions passed down through later authors.
That is such a terrible thing.
A break in the chain of human memory. Even well-known historical sites may have contained thousands of texts that are now completely gone. In some cases, only a small portion of a collection survives, leaving an incomplete picture of the knowledge that once existed.
I'm sorry, guys, that just fried my brain.
Discoveries occasionally reveal
all of that work gone.
That history is still incomplete. Each recovered text can change what is known about the past, but it also highlights how much has already been permanently lost. Number 6, the civilization that seemed to disappear without a clear ending. Some of the most puzzling gaps in human history come from civilizations that appear highly advanced, yet leave behind no clear explanation for their decline. The most famous example is the Indus Valley Civilization, which once covered large parts of Pakistan and northwest India.
It was between where? South Pakistan and North
once covered large parts of modern-day Pakistan and northwest India. Its cities were carefully planned, with straight roads, advanced drainage systems, and standardized construction methods that suggest strong organization and long-term stability. What makes it so mysterious is not what it built, but what it left behind in terms of records. Unlike Egypt or Mesopotamia, there are no long, readable texts that explain its kings, wars, or major events.
So we know nothing about it.
The system found on seals and pottery remains undeciphered, which means the civilization's internal voice is still silent. Historians can see the physical world it created, but not the stories it told about itself. Even the ending of the civilization is unclear. Some archaeological evidence suggests a gradual decline, possibly linked to environmental changes like shifting rivers or changing monsoon patterns. Other evidence suggests migration or economic disruption.
I wonder how people were there at the time.
There is no single confirmed explanation that fits all sites. Different cities show different patterns of decline, which makes it hard to describe one unified collapse. This creates a strange situation where a civilization appears fully real and highly developed, yet its final chapter is missing. The people did not vanish without a trace, but their explanation of what happened did. What remains is a network of silent cities, waiting for a missing key that might...
What if they might have just... I don't know why we think it would have happened. Like, I think some might integrated into other cultures and other, like, places, like just other places. Unless there was some kind of a disaster, but we're never going to know, are we?
Never be recovered. Number 5. Hostage in silence. One of the most frustrating gaps in historical understanding comes from ancient writing systems that survive physically but cannot be read. These scripts are not rare or isolated. Some exist in large quantities across.
Oh, I think I know what he's trying to say. Like, there's we have like a what's it? Like see like what we're seeing on screen right here, like all of this and all of this, but there's no translation. Is that what he's trying to say?
Entire regions carved into stone, pressed into clay, or stamped onto seals.
Mm-hmm.
Yet despite decades of research, they remain undeciphered.
Okay, how to figure it out.
Is one of the most significant examples. Found across hundreds of archaeological sites, it appears in short sequences that may have recorded trade, ownership, or administration.
Yeah, but they're guessing, aren't they?
Symbols are consistent and structured, suggesting a real language system.
They look cool.
However, the texts are too
figures.
short and lack a known bilingual reference, which makes decoding extremely difficult.
It's hard.
Another example is linear A, used in ancient Crete before the development of linear B. While linear B was eventually deciphered and linked to early Greek, linear A still resists translation. It likely recorded religious or administrative information, but its meaning remains locked away. The problem with these scripts is not just linguistic, it is historical. Without translation, entire societies remain partially invisible. Their beliefs, laws, economic systems, and historical events are inaccessible.
And you know what's so insane? This is one of those situations where I can't see a way we will ever find the answer to, like, find a translation for that. Because, for example, certain scientific inventions like, oh, how does a lie come to be? That's something someone figured out and was able to eventually figure out. You get me? But when you have a language that was interpreted a certain way and there's no one to be like, this is what it meant, like there's actually no one to be like that, then there's no actual like real solution. Do you know what I mean? That's just crazy.
It is like having a library filled with books that can be seen but never read. Every attempt at decoding brings new theories, statistical models, and comparisons with known languages.
And what are people that try to figure out? What they call linguists?
Identifying patterns, but no universally accepted breakthrough has been achieved. As a result, entire civilizations exist in a strange state where they are physically present in archaeology, but mentally absent from history. Number 4. The hidden links between ancient worlds that should not be connected. Across the ancient world, researchers continue to find surprising similarities between civilizations that were geographically far apart and supposedly had no direct contact. These similarities include pyramid-like structures, similar burial practices, comparable artistic symbols, and even overlapping architectural techniques. In places like Egypt, Mesoamerica, and parts of Asia, large stone monuments appear with structural similarities despite being built in completely different time periods and cultural contexts. In other regions, tools and pottery styles show unexpected resemblances that raise questions about how ideas spread in the ancient world. Mainstream explanations often suggest independent invention, meaning different societies developed similar solutions to similar problems.
That's what I'm thinking.
Human societies facing similar environmental and social challenges may naturally arrive at comparable ideas without direct communication. This explanation works in many cases, especially for basic technologies. However, remain difficult to fully explain. The gaps between known trade routes and confirmed migration paths leave room for uncertainty. Coastal changes, lost settlements, and submerged landscapes
Can we get an example?
Erased evidence of contact between distant regions. This creates a fragmented map of human development. Known civilizations appear as separate points, but the connections between them are incomplete.
It's possible for people to think of the same thing, especially when, first off, you have to remember that even though I'm sure they had their own complexities, the world back then, was in a lot of ways in comparison to the world we live in now, much more simplistic. So it's very possible someone could invent something, I don't know, off the strength of looking at something or realizing that something needs like adjustment. The only way, like, just this would have been good if he had given a conclusion, or sorry, not conclusion, example, because we can't really, say for sure. Like,
developed many ideas independently, or whether ancient networks of communication were more widespread than current evidence shows. The missing links do not confirm hidden connections, but they do leave enough uncertainty that
Rev points can turn takeaway pizzas into flights to Florence.
we're gonna get through it whenever it decides to like figure stuff out. The cheek of lagging in the middle of an ad, that's a whole, I feel like this is like Division 1 rage bait, you know? But it's cool.
Full
It's cool.
picture of ancient global interaction remains unfinished. Number three,
The
historical blank pages inside well-documented eras. Even in civilizations with strong historical records, there are periods where information becomes unusually thin, inconsistent, or entirely
So people in ancient times can't have creative blocks. They can't have a writer's block. Or what if they had nothing else to say? Or that was the end of the story, or the end of their narrative. Are we saying that ancient people cannot have creative blocks? You know what? Let me hear them out.
absent. These gaps do not always correspond to the collapse of society. Instead, they often appear during transitions, periods of instability, or moments when record-keeping systems break down. In some dynasties, entire decades are known only through later historical summaries written long after the events occurred. These later accounts often compress time, simplify complex political changes, or omit smaller details that would have been important for understanding how society actually functioned during that period. Archaeological evidence sometimes contradicts written records from these times. Cities may show continuous occupation even when texts suggest disruption. This creates uncertainty.
Okay, but whose text? You mean like? So I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but are they trying to say that historians are arriving at their own conclusions? Because what do you mean that history says one thing and then what their summaries are saying is another? Or am I hearing it wrong? Let me go back a little bit.
Evidence sometimes contradicts written records from these times. Cities may show continuous occupation.
Okay, you said evidence contradicts written records, but we just rely on the evidence because the evidence is the evidence. Oh, okay, hold on a minute. They're probably just not sure how evidential the evidence actually is. Like, how reliable is it? They don't have anyone to confirm. Okay. All right. Okay.
Even when texts suggest disruption, this creates uncertainty about how stable or unstable certain eras truly were. Natural disasters, wars, and political transitions often contribute to these gaps.
Oh, okay. They're also probably mentioning what the people at the time are writing. But and this is another thing. Bias and perspective plays a massive part in all of this. How people view, like, one situation can have like 10 different viewpoints and they could all differ. There can be mutual agreements in these different viewpoints, but they could all still be different. And also, if people are enemies or don't like each other, that also contributes to this and how everything is written. So, in conclusion, take this with a grain of salt, I feel like.
May be destroyed, administrative systems may collapse, or written records may simply not survive the passage of time due to material decay. Even in stable societies, record-keeping priorities may not include everyday events, leaving large parts of social history undocumented. The result is that even complete historical timelines are not truly complete.
When did the camera get invented?
Reconstructed
The video
from
camera.
surviving fragments, later interpretations, and selective preservation. Between the recorded events lie silent stretches of time where history likely continued, but the details were never fully preserved or have already been lost. Number 2. The periods where history changes without anyone noticing. Some of the most confusing gaps in human history are not sudden disappearances or dramatic collapses, but slow transformations that leave very little direct explanation. Societies often change gradually over centuries, and because there is no single clear moment of transition, later historians are left trying to reconstruct how one system turned into another. For example, the shift from Bronze Age societies to Iron Age societies did not happen at the same time everywhere. Some regions adopted iron tools and weapons early, while others continued using bronze for generations. In many cases, there are no detailed...
Imagine if someone from a different society came to another society and saw them using their bronze and stuff, and were like, "Now where'd you get that?" I say they'd be fascinated. I wonder what it would look like if we saw... Now, I know that these people eventually travel to other places, but like, what would it have been like? I wonder what I wonder if there's any documentation on people in like real ancient history going into a new place for the first time, and what their perspective was, like a day in their life on that day that they saw everything different for the first time. I wonder if we could ever get a good story on something like that, you know, like in a movie or like something like that.
Technologies replaced others so slowly. The reasons are usually inferred from trade patterns, resource availability, and archaeological layers, but the exact decision-making processes of people
Now, who's this king?
are lost. Political and cultural shifts often follow the same pattern. A ruling system may gradually weaken, local leaders may gain more power, and over time, a completely different structure emerges. From the outside, it can look like a sudden change in dynasties or kingdoms,
Whole
but
time they went
the
through
internal
a whole
process
thing
is
to get
often
there.
invisible because it was never recorded in detail while it was happening. What makes these gaps difficult is that history tends to highlight endpoints rather than transitions. We know what a civilization became, but not always how it slowly transformed into that form.
What have these people got going on? What have these folks got? This is supposed to be a game. Who's the target audience? Because it's definitely not me. Hold on. What have they got going on? We're really in the middle of a serious history video and you're playing it in our faces. Listen.
The everyday decisions, small
Deep
conflicts,
side.
and gradual adaptations that shaped those changes are rarely preserved. These unnoticed transformations create a version of history that feels sharper than reality.
I wonder
In
if the
truth,
first person that ever came up with something that was made of iron was like, I did it. I just struck gold. Or were they just like, huh, yeah, and just another invention. Like, you know, they didn't always care about the functionality of it.
most historical change likely happened quietly over long periods, leaving behind only the beginning and the end, while the middle phase disappears into uncertainty. Number 1. The fragile edge of human memory. Everything that was never recorded. The largest gap in the historical record is not a single missing event or civilization, but the simple fact that most human experience was never recorded at all. Writing has existed for only a small fraction of human existence, and
You know
even
what?
after writing appeared, only
We need to think about all the times. I'm sure that we all in all of our life have all sorts of stories and crazy things that have happened to us that we just never wrote down or recorded. Or no, matter of fact, we probably have all stories, yeah, where we forgot them. Like we don't remember them. But I'm sure that if we did remember them, we'd be like, that was crazy. That's it. That's an interesting concept to actually think about.
a limited portion of society had the ability or opportunity to document events. For most of history, records focused on rulers, wars, taxes, and major political
What about the common
events.
people?
Everyday life, personal experiences, local traditions, and small communities were rarely preserved in detail. Even when records existed, they were often written on materials that decay over time, such as papyrus, wood, or early paper, meaning large portions of documentation were lost naturally. This creates a situation where history is heavily shaped by what survived rather than what actually happened. Entire generations of ordinary people lived and died without leaving any written trace. Their experiences existed
Crazy.
fully in reality, but not in the historical record. Even in modern archaeology, discoveries constantly reveal how incomplete the picture is. A single excavation can uncover unknown settlements, forgotten trade networks, or entirely new cultural practices that were never mentioned in surviving texts. Each discovery expands history,
You know
but
what?
also
There's a beauty in
highlights
it,
how
though.
much is still missing.
Because now we have our minds to like wander for creative purposes. But when it comes to actual like serious stuff, I do think that it would be great if we knew more. Because it would likely solve a lot of issues. It would introduce us to new theories and ways of life. And it might even fix certain stuff that wasn't probably properly recorded in history. Like we don't know if certain stuff that we don't know if certain stuff English starting all over the place. We don't know if certain stuff that we've been presented with is just not factual or properly factual. Like it's been hindered, you know?
The final gap in human history is not something that can be filled. It is the accumulation of everything that was never written down, never preserved, or never discovered. It represents the silent majority of human existence, existing outside the pages of history, but still forming the foundation of everything that came after. Thank you for watching and sticking
W
till the end.
video. That was a good video. Yeah. Who did this? This was by some guy who knows stuff. Ooh, okay. He knows quite a bit. Okay, might have to have a look at his channel, see if there's more videos we can react to, guys. This is going up on YouTube. Just subscribe to my channel. W video. Yes, you should subscribe.